So we're here with Matt, Ken and Caleb for a discussion about leadership. We wanted to have a conversation about the elephant in the room today, which is, of course, with 3 generations in the same church. Some people might be asking questions about that. What's that all about? How does it all work in practice? So we just wanted to create a really open place so we can have a conversation about leadership all together, and we can have a discussion about the things that are tricky. If we don't talk about these things, they can become an issue. So it's good to discuss it and bring everything into the light. So that's what we're here to do today. So we've got some questions. So is that all right with you guys?
Sounds good.
Cool.
Sounds brilliant.
Fantastic. So first up, Ken, I guess you take great pride now that you have a bona fide leadership dynasty with several generations of your family all in the church with you.
If you talked to me a while back, John, about a dynasty, I would have thought you were absolutely out of your mind. Really interesting that people might be shocked by my answer. From a very early age, Matt and his brother Simon were thoroughly involved in church life. I think Simon was drummer when he was about 8. They were at one time the best overhead projector operators in the country, except when they got it upside down and back to front. But apart from that, they were really good. And that went on way into their sort of late teens. Having said all that, there was never any anticipation, expectation, assumption in my mind that they would ever take on sort of full-time roles, let alone leading churches. Matt joined the army. Simon went off, did engineering product design at college. Then he got a job as a sound engineer with a band and travelled around. Then he became a youth worker with a local authority. So there was no sense of them sort of walking into that. The other thing to say is, I think as a family, from a quite an early age, we were really open. You know, we didn't kind of hide stuff. And so Matt and his brother were thoroughly involved in all the great stuff that happened, the outpouring of the Spirit, people getting saved and healed, wonderful worship flowing. They were thoroughly involved in that. And they were thoroughly involved in all the grot, when people fell out with each other, people backslid, people weren't healed, didn't they? And so they, I think from a very early age, they saw the wonderful side of church life, and they saw the not so good church life side. And so I don't think there's any sense in my mind, and I would think in their mind either, of some assumption of some dynasty being formed. It would have been a long way from our thinking.
Thank you, Ken. That's great. Matt, the church you were serving at previously saw the man who had planted the church hand the leadership over to his daughter 40 years later. And this is something that we've talked about. So tell us a bit about that.
Well, I want everyone to know that's not a plan. And I've never thought, until someone actually asked me the question, which I think is a great question, because it's important, isn't it, that we are able to ask these things. I never even thought of that. I believe, and what we express as HCC is emergent leadership, which is all about planting seeds, about pouring water on those seeds and seeing what grows. And if a worship leader grows, if a social worker grows, if a missionary grows, then we support that and get behind it. So in terms of like relating that into Caleb, as well as all my children, just want to sow into them, water them, and then support what grows. So Caleb's future is what he does with God and what God does in him. And I hope us and the church get behind him as we would with anyone and support that.
Cool. Thank you. Caleb, with both your parents and grandparents involved in HCC leadership, this must have been the easy option, right? To come and work here and do some stuff here, come and do an internship here, back at home.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's, for me, the hardest option to choose. I think it would have been far easier. I would have found it far easier to go somewhere else because a lot of then your circumstances do your growth for you, and it enables you to grow in leadership, to grow in character, and all of those things. And it is, for me, far more challenging to stay in the church that I've grown up in, with people who've known me since I was really young, in my early teenage years, and so it's actually, for me, the hardest choice, but it's the choice that I feel that Jesus is calling me to. It's the one I feel convicted that this is his path for me. I think one of many paths that I could choose, but the one I feel convicted to choose. So
cool.
Just to jump in there, so I won't go into, but just so I want everyone to know really that, you know, Caleb had an opportunity at this big church called Chroma Church in Leicester, and actually both Catherine and I wanted him to go there. So very much, but we felt like oh, actually God's asking this. And so, yeah, just to reiterate that, even from our point of view, it wasn't an easy choice for us to go in, and actually we were jealous for the other in a way. So, yeah.
I can relate to that, guys. You know, the journey of coming home for me has not been an easy one, and so, you know, thank you for your honesty and your vulnerability in that space. I appreciate it, and I know that people will too. Ken, you've been involved in church leadership 56 years in several different churches. That's a long time, by the way, can I just say that?
Are you okay?
I started very young.
What is some key observations you've made about family and leadership?
Okay. I think what I want to say is that I would want to apply the same kind of principles in church life that you'd apply anywhere. If somebody's going to take on a role and do a job, for goodness sake, find the best person to do it really well, will be enthusiastic about it and will bear fruit, as opposed to the person who's related here or related there or grew up there. Tell you a story, I was head of the King's Primary School and we needed a new Year 3 teacher. And so Heather, my wife, applied for the job. She was talking to somebody a little bit later on and they said to her, oh, I've applied for the job at King's Primary School. And Heather said, so have I. And the person said, oh no, I'll withdraw my application then. The assumption being that if I was head of the school, Heather was bound to get the job, you know. Then the chairman of the governors, Dave, very good, said to me, just make sure you're clear, Ken, Heather will not get the job because she's your wife, and she will not get the job because she's your wife. The person who gets the job will be the person who does the best interview. Heather got the job. And so for 3 years, I was Heather's boss, which made up for the previous 27 years, but we won't go into that. And so I think that thing of who is the best person for the job. I was involved in a church where there were 3 really good leaders, they're good guys. They took it in turns to host the meetings because they were the leaders. They were hopeless at hosting the meetings. I used to sit, because I've done a bit of that, I think, oh please, find somebody who's good at that and don't do it because you're the leader and so on. And last little thing, I used to go to Malaysia a lot, and as a pastor over there I was very close with, good guy. But on 2 occasions he was desperately upset because his son, who was kind of late teens, early 20s, wasn't wanting to take on the leadership of the church, and people thought he ought to, and and I kind of did my best. I said, if he wants to be a car mechanic, let him be a car mechanic. And so I think the overall principle, let's find people who are good at the job that needs doing, who feel anointed, who are bearing fruit, and whether they're the great-grandson of Smith Wigglesworth is entirely irrelevant.
So I'm hearing that Abraham, Isaac and Jacob are secure in their heritage and roles.
I'd rather not comment.
That's fine. Matt, having both your dad and son involved in serving the church must make things very easy and must make you agree with them naturally all the time.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah,
Next question.
I think what's so important in leadership is depth of relationship, and I've found actually the most challenging critiquing person in the whole church of anything I do is this man here. So there's no sense of ever my dad just going, yeah, come on son, I'll agree with everything you say. And actually I think when there can maybe be those difficult conversations, actually family's often best placed to have those because there is that depth of relationship. So that's something we're fostering, continuing to grow across leadership. We're wanting to be vulnerable with each other, we're wanting to walk in the light. And it's something I've really blessed with in my family, but it does make it challenging sometimes because the thing you get with your family as well is whereas other people are like, oh, that's wonderful, well maybe 3 people, and whatever he says is just, your family doesn't see you like that all the time, which grounds you and keeps you feet on the earth, I think, and I think it's a beautiful thing. I love the fact that, Jesus called 12 guys to follow him, 2 sets of brothers. Jesus' brother, James, ended up leading the church in Jerusalem. I think like my dad's saying, we should celebrate family, but not elevate it because you're part of the family. But those people we do put in positions because they're right people and they're anointed.
I think it's so important that we can talk about family and close relationships. Highworth is historically a small town. As you know, I go back here probably like 5 generations. So there's that whole thing of, oh, you know so and so, oh, you grew up with so and so, we're all connected, and that can create its own challenges. So guys, thank you so much for being honest about that. That's really much appreciated. Caleb, come on, tell us, being Matt's son, what aspects of his leadership do you find difficult, and which of them are easier?
Yeah, I think in terms of difficult, being really honest, it's been really hard to not be seen in Dad's shadow, to not be perceived based on my relationship to him, and it's been challenging to be seen as my own person and to be championed just in me and Jesus's call on my life, and to not be disqualified or not supported because of that relationship present. But I've been so grateful that I feel like Jesus has shown me how to not have my identity in other people's perception of me and all of that. I'm not relying on other people to tell me who I am. I know that he tells me who I am. And without that, I wouldn't be able to do this and to be saying yes to continuing with HCC. And I think benefit, I'm just massively grateful for depth of relationship. And I think for me personally, accountability is huge because Dad knows me. Like he's seen all of my journey. And so then in a really amazingly beneficial position to disciple me as a person, but within working. And in the end, we're all working for the kingdom. And so I think it's so far has massively benefited that because we have such understanding for each other, and I get it in terms of when he's sharing something or challenging me. So
Thank you guys, all of you, for your honesty. Of course, like today we just wanted to have this chat and like bring stuff into the light because we don't want people tiptoeing around and being awkward about it. Like, so if people have questions and concerns, like where can they go? This is not on the list of questions, but I think that's a really important thing to ask. Where can people go if they've got questions or concerns about anything?
So I think we do have every week on the email, you can just hit feedback and just ask a question there and someone will follow it up. I think as well, just in terms of what we're just trying to do all the time, is there's a beautiful promise in 1 John about the blood of Jesus covering our sin and us having true fellowship and unity together. And it says we walk in the light as he is in the light. We step in and we just go, hey, I'm being vulnerable, I'm seen, I don't get everything right, nothing's perfect, he's perfect, he's in us. And I think the main thing, I hope doing this today, that if you've ever felt awkward or a bit like unsure or concerned, you can just come nicely, but just ask the questions and I won't bite your head off, and or these guys will, and we can just chat. And I think what we're trying to say here is we recognise there's a tension, so we work hard to mitigate against that. So actually it's not a problem and it's only a benefit.
Cool. These guys can't say this, but I'm going to say this, and they don't know what I'm about to say, which is I believe God's put a call on this young man's life. And I want us as a church to get behind him. I think it's really, really important. When I was 18, I loved the fact that the church championed me, cheered me on, got behind me and celebrated me and raised money for me and prayed for me and encouraged me. And I would love it if we could do the same thing with Caleb. And with Heather as well. I think they're great young people. All of our young people deserve to be encouraged and lifted up, and we want to see them go further and higher than we ever have. So let's be a church of champions. Let's cheer people on.
So good.
Thanks everyone.
Yeah, bless you guys.